Yes, it's been an amazing return. It's been absolutely wonderful to come back. And I wouldn't always say that. I would usually feel a little bit bereft leaving my community in Perth and not knowing quite what's going to happen over here. Usually not having anywhere to come back to, but coming back to the monastery this time and just viscerally feeling the enormity of it, it was quite overwhelmingly inspirational. Yeah, can hardly believe it, really, that we have this beautiful place. It's kind of like a wonderful canvas, quite a beautiful canvas, not an empty one, but a very spacious one that we can, fill up with lots of Dhamma practice, Dhamma service, spiritual friendship, all kinds of ways to grow. And it just feels like such a blessing to be part of this, and equally to see you all here today. So you are part of this community, whether you're here in the room with me or not. For now, you are. And it's really great that we've gathered together today to bring the Buddha's words to our lives, quite literally. So with these sutta discussions, they are discussions rather than classes, so to speak. So I'm not going to give you all the kind of academic or kind of right ways to interpret these things, but rather I'd like you to consider how they might apply to your lives. And sometimes they may resonate, sometimes they might not, and sometimes you may disagree. So the Buddha always said, it's really important to ask questions. He said that people who do ask questions become very clever, very intelligent in their next life. So while you wait until your next life, start engaging with these teachings now and see how they may enrich and inspire your lives, not only in meditation, but also in everyday life. So we did finish the Social and Communal Harmony book by Venerable Bhikkhu Bodhi after about 2.5 years. And now we're sort of, I'm just choosing suttas that I like, but there doesn't seem to be a particular pattern to it just yet. But today I opened up the Anguttara Nikaya, which is this wonderful book. It's the numerical discourses. And I found a beautiful sutta in the tens. So the Anguttara tens means that usually there's a list of 10. Oh, yeah. I think, isn't that in the words of the Buddha, Veronica? That's the Buddha's words. Yeah, no, this is the Anguttara Nikaya. So it's not an anthology. It's a full book of suttas. And don't worry if you don't have it. Don't worry at all, because, as I said, this is more of a discussion. So it's not an academic study. And I'm going to read it and then we can discuss it. So it's number 1017. So that means Anguttara Nikaya 10 and Sutta 17, and it's called The Protector. Thanks, Matthias, for writing it in the chat. So in other sutta classes, we've tended to sort of read a very little amount and then discuss. But I think for the sake of fluidity, perhaps, I might just read the whole thing. And then we'll go back to the beginning and I'll read a little bit at a time. Does that sound good? It might also be helpful if you don't have the book, so you get a general picture of the sutta first. Okay, so here we go. And please excuse me if I'm a little bit husky, or I get a little bit muddled, or my way of thinking is not so clear. I'm very jet lagged, but I couldn't wait to start these classes again. So you get me in jet lag mode. So first of all, I'll explain that I'm going to change the word bhikkhu to the word community, because the Buddha is addressing the monk sangha, but quite often he's simply addressing the most senior group of people in the room. And it may well be that there were many bhikkhunis and also lay people present. Although this is mainly addressed to monastics, it can certainly apply to our lives. I just want to say hi to Filippo. Hi, because I know you want to say hi to me. Hello, you look well, really well. Bless you. The youngest attendant here, maybe the wisest too. Is that true? Okay, so let's begin. Community. Live under a protector, not without a protector. One without a protector lives in suffering. There are these 10 qualities that serve as a protector. What 10? Number 1, here, a person is virtuous. They dwell restrained by the patimokkha. That's the code of training in restraint for the monastic sangha. Possessed of good conduct and resort, seeing danger in minute faults. Having undertaken the training rules, they train in them. Since such a monastic, let's say, is virtuous, dwells restrained by the patimokkha, possessed of good conduct and resort, seeing danger in minute faults, and having undertaken the training rules, trains in them, this is a quality that serves as a protector. So number 1 was basically virtue. Number 2, again, a person or a monastic has learned much, remembers what they have learned, and accumulates what they've learned. Those teachings that are good in the beginning, good in the middle, and good in the end, with the right meaning and phrasing, which proclaim the perfectly complete and pure spiritual life. Such teachings as these they have learned much of, retained in mind, recited verbally, investigated mentally, and penetrated well by view. Since they have done this, I'm going to skip the ... and skip repeating it. Since they have done all of this and penetrated the teachings well by view, this too is a quality that serves as a protector. Number 3, again, a person or a monastic has good friends, good companions, and good comrades. Since a person has good friends, good companions, and good comrades, this too is a quality that serves as a protector. Number 4, again, a monastic or a person on the path is easy to correct and possesses qualities that make them easy to correct. They are patient and receive instruction respectfully. Since a person is easy to correct and receives instruction respectfully, this too is a quality that serves as a protector. Again, a person is skillful, this is number 5, and diligent in attending to the diverse chores that are to be done for their fellow monastics. They possess sound judgment about them in order to carry out and arrange them properly. Since a monastic or a person who lives in community, perhaps, is skillful and diligent, etc., this too is a quality that serves as a protector. Number 6, again, a person, a monastic or layperson, loves the Dhamma and is pleasing in their assertions, filled with a lofty joy pertaining to the Dhamma and the discipline. That's again the training rules in the Patimokkha. Since a monastic or a person practicing loves the Dhamma, this too is a quality that serves as a protector. I like that one. Number 7, again, a monastic or a person practicing sincerely has aroused energy for abandoning unwholesome qualities and acquiring wholesome qualities. They are strong, firm in exertion, not casting off the duty of cultivating wholesome qualities. Since a person has aroused energy, I think I'll repeat it because it's quite important, for abandoning unwholesome qualities and acquiring wholesome qualities, are strong, firm in exertion, not casting off the duty of cultivating wholesome qualities, this too is a quality that serves as a protector. Again, a person, a monastic, is content with any kind of robe, alms food, lodging and medicines, and provisions for the sick. Since this person is content with any kind of robe, alms food, lodging and medicines and provisions for the sick, This too is a quality that serves as a protector. Number 9, again, a monastic or a practitioner is mindful, possessing supreme mindfulness and alertness. One who remembers and recollects what was done and said long ago. Since a person is mindful, possessing supreme mindfulness and alertness, and remembers and recollects what was done and said a long time ago, this too is a quality that serves as a protector. And number 10, again, the person is wise. They possess the wisdom that discerns arising and passing away, which is noble and penetrative and leads to the complete destruction of suffering. Since a monastic or any practitioner is wise, possesses the wisdom that discerns arising and passing, which is noble and penetrative and leads to the complete destruction of suffering, this too is a quality that serves as a protector. Monastics or practitioners live under a protector, not without a protector. One without a protector lives in suffering. These are the 10 qualities that serve as a protector. So that is the sutta, and there's a lot in that. We could almost say it contains aspects of the Eightfold Path and the gradual training. So it's a huge overview, but some of it is going into a little bit more detail. For example, the part about performing the diverse, it says chores. I prefer the word duty, because chore in English means it's really a problem, right? It's a chore. It's something heavy on your shoulders. And it's going through sort of, developing good qualities, being content, being mindful, which are all aspects of the gradual training, and the ultimate goal of wisdom as well. And some of the trainings that are important, especially for monastics, but I think that can apply equally to ourselves in the lay world, being easy to correct, having good friends, that's important for everyone, remembering and learning and remembering what we've learned. And of course, virtue, the foundation of the path. So it's a very beautiful and comprehensive sutta that I think we could probably talk about for several sutta discussion sessions. But I think the first point I want to make is that it's again the Buddha sort of using a little bit of not exactly irony, but contrasting what maybe most people think of as living under a protector with his own version of it. Because in the beginning there, it looks as though he's asking us to live under somebody else's guidance, under somebody else's auspices, right? Or maybe even taking refuge in a human being or a god, or, which is common in most religions, live under a protector. Ask for your sins to be, washed away, or sort of, project your own power onto somebody else in ways that they become the savior. But he's now saying that this protector he's talking about is actually our own inner cultivation. And that's so beautiful, isn't it? Because it's something we can all do. And it's almost as though he's giving us a beautiful cake and there are 10 slices to it. And you can take a slice from anywhere in that cake and work on that, chew on that, enjoy it, relish it, savor it, allow it to nourish you. And that will already be a protector for you. Then we can get on to the next piece and the next piece, or we can have a bit of each, pick about. So there are ways in to this practice for everybody. And there are times in your daily life that you can be practicing any one or maybe more than one of these. So no activity in your day is wasted. Even attending to those so-called chores, it's about how you do it, skillfully, diligently, right? Possessing sound judgment about them in order to carry them out and arrange them properly. In other words, to make our life smooth, simple, easeful, to support other people in their jobs too. This is one of the lovely things that happens at monasteries. You know, people kind of do all the little things that I'm not able to do, such as cook lunch, which is quite a big thing. But even just sort of facilitate this session. You know, there were co-hosts there waiting, or there were people at the monastery that helped me set up the computer, for example. And it's kind of working as an entity, working as a coherent unit. You know, you've seen the way ants work. They work as one sort of entity. It's really incredible. And human beings, I think, yeah, we kind of get used to doing things for ourselves, don't we? Sometimes. And don't quite look out for one another as much as we could. So, that said, I might just start from the beginning again and perhaps read the very first one, and then we might open up for some discussion on that. Does that sound good? Even if it doesn't, that's what's going to happen. So it's the way we relate to that. So here we go. I'll start again. Monastics or practitioners, community, live under a protector, not without a protector. One without a protector lives in suffering. There are these 10 qualities that serve as a protector. What 10? And number 1, again. Here, a person is virtuous. They dwell restrained by the patimokkha. So that is specific to the monastic training, but we follow the training that is relevant to our own lives. Even among the patimokkha, we're not following all of those things, or we're not enacting all of those things all the time, because many of them are contextual. You know, for example, not teaching the Dhamma while holding an umbrella or something like this, or to somebody who's holding an umbrella. That isn't usually being practiced. So it's contextual. Mm-hmm. But there's a certain standard that we follow. There's a certain way in which we live a values-aligned life. We know what's appropriate in any given context, and we try to live up to that. So one is possessed of good conduct and resort, seeing danger in minute faults, and having undertaken the training rules, they train in them. So if you have taken the 5 precepts, or you aspire to live by the 5 precepts, we train in those precepts, which doesn't mean never making a mistake, but it means accepting our mistake and starting again. If you can, even confessing your mistake, telling someone about it, just for the sake of transparency, honesty, maybe feedback or correction, you know, not allowing a sense of guilt or shame to keep things suppressed. That's very important. I remember on one of my first long course with Goenkaji in India, I think it was 1999, there was a discourse. They changed it actually later on, but at that time, one of the discourses on, I think, day 22, said that if you have made any mistake, confess it to a teacher, because not so the teacher can kind of absolve you, but so that you take the lid off the shame or off the guilt, and then it can kind of be processed. It's like you've stopped pressing it down, you've stopped keeping it a secret, you've stopped, in a sense, closing your heart. Because when you do tell someone else, they usually say, oh, come on, you know, we've all done that, it's not so bad. Okay, so you made a mistake, but you're not the only one. And they might confess to you too. And that can remove a lot of shame and feeling of lack of self-worth, or, you know, whatever it is that can come about when we think we've made a mistake, and help us forgive ourselves. So, possessed of good conduct and resort. What does that mean? Something to do with the context, the place that we live, a suitable place. Maybe not going to the pub, or at least not going out when people are really getting drunk and, you know, there's drugs happening, or there's a lot of noise maybe, or any sort of situation which makes it difficult to observe your precepts, difficult to really bring out the qualities you want to cultivate in your life. So I'll stop there on number one, and I think it would be nice to open some discussion. It doesn't have to be about the first one. It could be about anything that kind of catches your interest in the sutta. But it'd be really lovely to hear if you have, especially any experience or personal practice experience with any of this, or see how it is or is not relevant to your life. So, and for Nadine, if you just want to stick your hand up at any time, I'll include you because they have virtual hands, you have real ones. So, I'll come to Shirley. Hi, Shirley.
Hi. It's lovely to have you back and have this sort of class back. And I'm sorry you're jet lagged, but thank you for coming when you're jet lagged. It's a general thing. When I sort of saw this as a protection, and when you sort of look at what's a protection, we lock our doors, we take out insurance, we do all these things to keep ourselves safe, and yet samsara is very unsafe. We live in a very unsafe world. A lot of people around me have health problems at the moment, and that sort of feels quite scary at times. A lot of things can be very, very scary, but we think what we do, it just made me reflect, and it's something I've been reflecting on. We try and make ourselves safe in a situation that's totally insecure. And these are things that we can rely on as a refuge if we can actually think, I've not on purpose harmed a living being today, or all these things. They are a protection. And I have sort of been reflecting in a different way, but I just thought this was really lovely. And even the way you do your household jobs, see them as, it's put chores, but just to see that as a practice is a loving thing that you can do well for your environment, or for your partner, or for the planet. I went litter picking yesterday, and I was feeling really I can't do anything. I was sort of feeling very, very low about the sort of whole planet. And then I just thought, I can do this to be kind to nature. I can do this to be kind to the river, to stop any plastic going into it. And then this morning I listened to a talk a discussion by the two. I'm going off a bit, but this was really rather sweet. The two young monks in Clear Mountain, and they were talking about devas. And I thought, if I clear up the environment, maybe there are tree devas around. Maybe, why not? And just by looking after that little space, I could keep the devas happy. So these sort of things that you can reflect on. That, you can't control the universe, you can't control anything, but there are these. So I really enjoyed all this list of protectors. Some of them are more challenging than others, I have to admit. But we'll come on to that. I think I've said enough. But just this general thing that, and if we try and protect our things with sort of like insurance and locking the door and all these things, we are going to be in suffering, because actually we're trying to make safe something that isn't safe. That's what struck me as I was reading this. And you're bound to suffer if we do this, because the universe isn't safe. So I just thought,
Shirley, that's beautiful.
Yeah. I'll stop now because I've said.
Thank you. Yes, I think you make a really beautiful point, and I really like your point about reflection. Because really, what does the Buddha mean by protection? How does it protect us? Really, what protects us is our cultivation, our mental cultivation, the quality of our mind, because that's the only thing we have really some influence over. Like you say, we can do our best for our health, we can do our best. We have to lock our doors. It's okay to lock our doors, because we're also protecting others from stealing. One of my teachers in Nepal told me that. He said, maybe you don't have anything to steal, maybe you don't care if they steal something, but it's bad karma for them. So in a way, these things are also valid, but yes, quite right, we can't put all our emphasis on the material external world. We have to cultivate the inner world, because that's the only thing we take with us. And, a protection means we keep our minds clean, we keep them pure, we keep them joyful. And when we do reflect, for example, on, like, I had a lovely experience in my retreat that there was a little scorpion. I thought it was just a piece of cotton all scrunched up in my shower. And I thought, I wasn't quite sure what it was. And then I found out that it was actually a scorpion, and I thought it had died. But anyway, I stopped the shower and tried to take it out with a piece of toilet paper. And for a long time, I thought it had died. But eventually, I saw one of its little claws move, and I realized it was alive. And then the other claw climbed onto the toilet tissue. And gradually it dried out and climbed right on the tissue so I could put it outside. And I was just so joyful from that small little thing. And my mind was so kind of nourished by that. And I think that's the real power of virtue. Yes, we're protecting other people. We're learning to cultivate harmlessness, but also we're protecting our own mind from the default, well, let's say the hindrances of things like ill will, even depression or hopelessness, like you mentioned. We can always do something for the environment, even something for the devas. I have no doubt there are such things. So, yeah, really, really nice point. Thank you. No, I know that. Yes, you weren't suggesting we shouldn't care and protect ourselves in a conventional way. Quite right. Yeah, so I'm coming to the chat and then I'll come to Lee. So we have a comment in the chat. It's interesting to me in number 9 that the aspect of memory is emphasized regarding mindfulness. I think many people may not be hip to memory as an aspect of mindfulness, but it's clearly important. Absolutely, yes. Thank you for that. It was interesting because my first teacher would sort of make the point that I think in ancient India, the word smriti, which is the Sanskrit for sati, did mean memory. And he would say that sati in Buddhism is totally different from that because it's not memory, it's present moment awareness. But later on, when I got into the suttas, I realized that's not entirely true. Sati does include present moment awareness, but it also includes the faculty of wisdom. So quite often, sati is not found alone, it's found as a conjunct, sati sampajanya, sati with wisdom. And part of the aspect of the wisdom, I think Ajahn Chah called it satipanya, but it's the same thing, sati sampajanya. It actually means remembering the instructions. So sati is not only being aware, it's remembering why you're being aware, how to be aware, what to do when hindrances arise. So it includes the aspect of cultivating the wholesome, increasing the wholesome, restraining the unwholesome, and abandoning the unwholesome, the 4 right efforts. It includes all of that. So it is very interesting. I mean, how many of us know very well that we should be mindful? But the main problem is we forget. It's not that we can't be mindful, right? I mean, try it now. Try and be aware of your foot. How much effort is needed just to bring awareness to the feelings in your foot? Do you have to try and strive? And maybe your foot is numb, I don't know. But any part of the body that's easy to feel, just try and bring your awareness maybe to your, I don't know, mouth or hand. It's quite easy. It doesn't take a lot of effort. But a lot of the time we forget. When I'm speaking like this, I can feel the sensations in my hand, in all my hands, and then the whole body sort of consciousness comes into my mind. So yeah, that is one of the difficulties, remembering to be mindful and remembering the instructions. That means the teachings of the Buddha, right? Remembering the instructions. Sometimes we're meditating, I say this for myself, and I think I'm being mindful, but I'm forgetting that actually I'm starting to identify. I'm forgetting the teachings on non-self, or I'm forgetting being gentle. I'm not being fully gentle. I'm starting to, push things along. So keeping that wisdom aspect alive and integrated in a way with the mindfulness is really important for the practice. Yeah, thank you for pointing that out. Does that make sense? Is there anything else on that? If you wanted to follow up, you're welcome to write something more in the chat. Otherwise, I shall come to Lee. Can you unmute yourself? Super.
Hello.
Hi.
It's been a while. It took a while to get through that book. I think. This is a lovely sutta, isn't it? There's so much there to think about.
Yeah.
And but the thing I suppose that's at the moment jumping out at me is the spiritual friendship. I think the Buddha says to Ananda, doesn't he, that how important it is on the path.
Yeah.
You know, and I think that's so true. I feel really blessed that my husband also practices.
Great.
We're very committed, and so we have what I think is like a mini sangha. We talk about the Dhamma a lot and practice and study, but we also I'm on a remote island, so a lot of this is online.
Yeah.
And so there is some Sangha group. This is lovely to gather together and to be back. I had to pause practice for a while because I was doing a lot of meditation. I suppose I was getting energy body symptoms and had to ease back a bit. Western practice habits, maybe various things. So anyway, I was thinking, and that period of having to pull back from all the meditation I was doing for a bit and not being able to participate, I really missed my spiritual friends so much. And so but reconnecting, and I feel like we're quite a small community. I see, like, if I go onto retreats or studies, I feel like, oh, hello, there's that group and they're everybody from all over the world. But I think I notice so it's very nurturing. It helps practice the momentum and to continue and to share experience. But what I've noticed in my everyday, with people who don't practice, which is very few on where I live, it can be, sometimes there's a sense of feeling so different.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? I don't know what other people in the group have experienced. I know, luckily, my family are very loving, and my boys think, you know, gosh, I'm highly ethical and have a committed practice, which they don't understand. But that's okay. But I suppose in every day, I sometimes don't feel understood. You know, I think some people think I'm a bit, I don't know if strange is the right word, but yeah, you know, there's that sense of, you know, perhaps, you know, not embracing everything. Like in the Christmas season, no, I don't like to drink lots of alcohol and eat too much. And I don't buy, it's an ethical decision not to buy all the presents and go crazy. And I know people find that a bit strange or uncomfortable, you know. Anyway, those are just some thoughts.
Thank you.
Just jumped to my mind about. Yeah, I think I wish perhaps for a more spiritual friendship.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, we can certainly not get too much spiritual friendship. I've just been totally indulged across 5 months in Australia with all my friends seeming to be there. Not everyone, but, you know, people I haven't met for years and years, people that I've actually taught retreats with over in America, and people from, you know, that are always around, but I never get a chance to talk to, and so many Sangha friends. And I feel completely buoyed up and nourished by this. But you know, it's wonderful if you have a partner who you can talk about Dhamma with, because I think our closest people in our lives are important. It's important we share our values with them. And sometimes it can be enough, you know, to sort of field any of the other sort of sense of maybe disapproval or outside people that don't know you, sort of not quite understanding you. Probably most of the time they're not really too bothered, actually, about what you do or don't do. Most people are in their own little world. But I actually think it's a good sign, in a sense, when people sort of see that we're doing something different and our values are going in a different direction, because that's the case. That is the case. The Buddha says, that this path goes against the stream. It goes against the stream of craving, acquiring, amassing. It goes against the stream of selfish kind of, selfish pursuits, right? It's actually going inside rather than outside after material gain, and it's going inward to see what we can let go of. So you are on a different path. And I think if we can have the conviction and the inspiration to follow the path that speaks to us, we do start to influence the people around us. One important thing is, I think, that we're not judging other people, because sometimes, I think in the early days, my parents might have been a bit resistant because I was, in a sense, judging them, or at least they felt judged. So they kind of saw my path as almost a rejection of their lives, which I didn't really see it that way, but I can understand that feeling. And as I've become more open-hearted, and I can see the goodness in everybody, even if they're not practicing, of course, most people are not practicing, but they're still incredibly ethical, kind, and generous people. That's kind of bridged the divide, and I start to feel there's something I can learn from everyone, actually. I don't know if that really speaks to what you said, but just some thoughts that came to my mind in response. But yeah, importance of spiritual friendship is immense. We do need to hear the Dhamma. That's the first reason spiritual friendship's important. And the Buddha said to instruct, inspire, encourage, and gladden. So I think you touched on that too. Yeah. Benjamin, did you have your hand up at some point? You want to speak? Lovely.
Yes, I just had a few thoughts about what Lee said. I've noticed something very similar of people maybe finding me a bit strange, because I think as a practitioner of Buddhism or anything in that kind of direction, we have different priorities to most people.
Yeah.
But another thing I've noticed is practice is an accelerant for change. And it can be very disorienting to people who maybe you see once in a while, and they can notice you've changed. And maybe you've changed for the better, but it's still uncomfortable for them because they expect you to be a particular way. Yeah. And I think generally, if people aren't practicing, maybe they don't change as quickly or as noticeably. And it reminded me of something I heard a Taoist teacher say once. I can't remember exactly his words, but he said something along the lines of, the more spiritually advanced you get, the fewer people you can really hang out with. Because
that's an interesting one, isn't it?
Yeah. It's like I guess what he means, because on one level I think the more advanced you get, the more people you can hang out with, because you can be more accepting. Right. But I guess what he's driving at there is the fewer people will really understand what you're interested in. But that was an interesting thought.
It is an interesting one.
And I wanted to say also thank you, Lee, for mentioning ab reactions to meditation, having to pull back on practice, because I think that's something most people don't talk about, and it's important to be aware of.
Yeah, thanks for that. That's made me think that sort of saying. Did you say it was a Taoist one? Because my first instinct was that I find it's the opposite. I find the more I understand my own mind, the more I understand the universal reality of suffering and impermanence and non-self, the more connected I feel to everyone else. But maybe that's different. Feeling connected and feeling I can relate and maybe share or help and support might be different from actually spending a lot of time with people who have very, very different values. I mean, how much time do I spend with people who drink? Probably not much. Certainly not when they're drinking anyway. I mean, I don't hang out in the pubs, I hope that's obvious. Yeah, again, it might be a matter of who's in your closer circles, but I do think that, yes, it's important to have nurturing relationships, good spiritual friendships, but also to bring people in. And it depends how strong you are in a way. I think in the beginning we need to have our clan, we need to kind of reinforce what we know to be true and what we believe to be true, our path. We need to be around like-minded people until we become a little bit more self-assured or more confident in the path. And I mean, in my role, I just meet all kinds of people. So certainly I feel that it can spread out from there. But I guess people's needs are different in that sense. Yeah. There's another comment about, 2 more comments in the chat about spiritual friendship. I feel very blessed that my non-Buddhist friends also value contentment and kindness. Yeah. Again, universal values, right? I mean, we have some sort of inner wisdom or intuition that these things lead to happiness. I mean, who's happy when they're craving? Yeah, there's a kind of addiction to that energy of craving, but it's a very fraught kind of needy sense of lack. And kindness, I mean, we feel terrible when we're unkind, when we hurt others, when we're deliberately cruel, or even unintentionally, step on a little insect. Oh no, I should have looked out. So yeah, I just think most human beings value kindness enormously. And if they don't understand kindness, it might be because they didn't receive it enough. So another person saying that, to me, unfortunately, at the moment, spiritual friendship is only available online. What a blessing to have support in your family. Yeah, that's true. But at the same time, having spiritual friendship online is pretty amazing. I mean, imagine in the past, before there were these online teachings or, access to talks on YouTube, and people couldn't hear the Dhamma. I mean, you might be stuck in a remote town somewhere where nobody was even talking about mindfulness, never mind meditation. Where I was growing up, I don't think anyone talked about that. I'd never heard of it until I got to India. But I had an instinct I have to travel to India. It was a long way to go. So in a sense, that spiritual friendship online can be really important. Even just sitting, I was saying to Nadine today, my guest, that there's a group who just meet together to meditate together online. I mean, they don't even say hello, but the fact that there are other faces there that they see for about a minute before they close their eyes is incredibly supportive, and it's validating of the choice to sit. It also keeps them kind of, it sort of motivates them to start a regular practice, because they know, on Tuesday at this and this time, there's a meditation sitting, I can join. So there are all kinds of ways we can connect with others, and it is real people. And actually, I said I don't know you, but I do, because I just know your face somehow. Or maybe it's your energy, I don't know. But you know me, and because you've been listening, and even though we haven't met, that's real to you. And the other thing I'd like to say is that the Buddha can be our spiritual friend when we open the books, especially when we discuss it in this way and we apply it to our lives. The Buddha starts to come alive to us as a real human being that understood the mind. Not people's minds 2,600 years ago, but the human mind, which hasn't really changed at all. We might have different social concerns, different kinds of contexts in which we practice. But to me, it just blows my mind that, even the monastic Sangha is intact. I mean, it's one of the oldest democracies in the world, and it's still there. And the reciprocity between the lay community and the monastic community still exists. So we can get inspiration. I would just like to encourage you to, whenever you are feeling sad, it's valid, and just be kind to that feeling. But at the same time, when you've offered yourself that compassion, see if you can actually give yourself a gift of spiritual friendship by bringing it up in your mind, remembering that there are good people there, bringing them up, bringing up those feelings of support, of, kind of spiritual friendship, that there are people who understand you, there are people who care, and even just bringing up people's faces here. How does it feel to be sitting in a group of people who really, even just by showing up, they wish to support one another? So you're not alone. You're really not alone. And you're always welcome to these groups. There's many other Dharma groups. And maybe one day you can come and visit too. Just keep going. Things change. My family of, over the years, it's been 30 years of practice now, nearly, about 29 years of practice. And yeah, at the beginning, it felt like we were probably moving further apart, but now it doesn't feel that way anymore. I feel my parents have come towards the Dhamma. And even though they wouldn't sort of say that in those terms, they probably wouldn't think of themselves as Buddhists, they're certainly very sympathetic because they've seen how I've changed. So take heart, take heart. Yeah. Someone else said that they're in the same boat. So you need to go and live next door. Go live next door to each other. That's one of the main things I love about what I'm doing. And of course, unfortunately, it's only one tiny, tiny drop in the ocean, right? Tiny. But at the same time, it's a place where people can meet and people are getting to know each other through this community. So it is really one of the joys that I experience when people come together and, you know, don't only become friends with me, but become friends with each other. So wonderful. So maybe you can start some little Dhamma community where you live. Who knows? Sometimes we think we need someone else to be the leader and to show us the way, but sometimes we already have something to offer to others, right? So see if you can start a little group. So I'm so grateful for the opportunity to join you in here. Wonderful. Yeah. I will always continue these. People keep asking me, are you going to keep continuing the online? Because now you've got a monastery to run and all this. But I would not abandon the wider community. I just couldn't do it. I mean, you've all been supporting me and feeding me and just giving me spiritual support, believe it or not, for years. I feel teary to think about it. We would not have this monastery if it wasn't for these groups, for all of you in your own ways. It meant everything during the corona pandemic, and it continues to be incredibly nourishing for me too. So, shall I now, if there are no more comments so far, read through the second one again, and we'll see what comes of that. We can skip around as we have been doing, but let's just see if there's something more to glean from this. So this is the second one. Again, a person has learned much and remembers what they've learned and accumulates what they've learned. Those teachings that are good in the beginning, good in the middle, and good in the end, with the right meaning and phrasing, which proclaim the perfectly complete and pure spiritual life. Such teachings as these they've learned much of, retained in mind, recited verbally, investigated mentally, and penetrated well by view. Since this is the case, this too is a quality that serves as a protector. It's interesting, I just noticed this one comes before the spiritual friendship, because they're so connected, aren't they? What we learn is from our spiritual friends, and one of those is the Buddha. But then we have to remember it, learn it, accumulate it. You know, keep building on it, keep looking at it from different angles, keep allowing it to sink in. And notice how it's helping you right now with the current level of understanding that you have. It's good in the beginning, it's leading to wholesome states. It's good in the middle, when you're well into your practice, and it's good in the end. It's leading in the right direction towards the end of suffering, freedom from that, with the right meaning and phrasing. So it's clear, it makes sense, which proclaim the perfectly complete and pure spiritual life. Nothing's missing, it's complete. The Buddha's giving you everything you need to know, and actually, in a sense, each sutta can stand alone. I was just rewriting the little blurb for this sutta class, because now we're not doing the social and communal harmony. And I was saying, you know, in the Buddha's day, bhikkhus and bhikkhunis, I don't know about lay people, possibly lay people too, were getting enlightened or stages of enlightenment from hearing one teaching, sometimes just a pithy sentence. And they could, really make huge progress on the path. They suddenly would see things in a completely different way. So it's incredibly powerful. Of course, the more we experience and expose ourselves to these teachings, the more we start to incline our minds to the Dhamma. Because this whole thing that we take as a self is just a process of conditions. And we're conditioning ourselves, we're brainwashing ourselves, as Ajahn Brahm likes to say, in a really beneficial way. So it should be producing some amount of happiness for you. It doesn't mean you'll always be happy, but you have now some tools to understand when you're not. And what are the causes of the suffering? What are the causes of dissatisfaction, of grief, or rolling in these emotions that are difficult to bear? And accumulating, the more we learn, the more it starts to sink in. So we learn it, retain it in mind, recite it verbally. Of course, in the Buddha's day, that was very important because that was how these teachings were preserved. And investigate it mentally. As Shirley was saying, we can bring up the things that make us happy, the things that we do that are virtuous. We can bring it up in our minds. How does it feel? To go out and pick the litter and reflect on the beauty of that, the way that you're, taking care of the earth. How does it feel? Is it right? Is it wrong? Is it increasing wholesome states or not? Is there too much expectation that you're going to change the world and that creates suffering? Or can you just do what you do and leave the results aside? And then we manage to penetrate them well by view. So this is what happens when they start to really change our perspective on life. So this is true. Lay people too can have enlightenment experiences. For example, King Suddhodana, Siddhartha's father, that's the Buddha's father. I mean, yes, this is right. We know that they can have enlightenment experiences, but I was saying that are there any cases in the suttas where they hear a teaching and instantly become enlightened? I'm sure there are, actually. But I think usually not full enlightenment arahat, because there is this strange belief in the suttas, and I don't know how true this is, that if somebody does become fully enlightened as a layperson, they basically have no choice but to take the robes. And if they don't, then they'll die within a week. And I think the reason for that is because they have no reason really to carry on unless they're in a situation where they can serve, unless they're in a situation to keep these teachings going, because the only energy that they really have at that point, they don't have a sense of self, they don't have will, they don't have any desires or any cravings or anything to do anymore once you're fully enlightened, except you have the Brahma Viharas, you have loving kindness, compassion, sympathetic joy, and equanimity, and this is your energy source. So there has to be a way to keep serving, there has to be a meaning to your life. And of course, if you don't have any craving, it's going to be very hard to work and live in the lay world. So basically, you have to live a life of renunciation, or very, very similar to that. But yes, there was also Gatikara, the potter, and he was actually anagami. So that's the third stage of enlightenment. He had no more craving. And he lived such a simple life that the only reason he didn't ordain was because he had to serve his parents. He had to look after them. They were blind. And so he used to make pottery, and leave it outside his home. And he had a little sign there, and it just said, if you would like a pot, please take it. And if you wish to, please just leave some food in return. And that was how he lived, incredibly simply, so close to living as a renunciate. So this is what actually happens. Yeah, he was saying they became fully enlightened to arahat, but they must have been ordained, because there's no other reference to arahat lay people in that time, I don't think. They must have got ordained. But of course, I mean, we all start as lay people. It's not that lay people are somehow below monastics, right? It's just that the training is an expedient means. It's a very wonderful vehicle and an incredible conduit as well for serving the Dhamma. So yes, anyone And everyone here absolutely can and probably will become enlightened. Do you believe that? You probably will. Do you believe that? This is where faith starts to grow. Maybe you don't have that faith yet, but after a while you'll see you are going in that direction. You might feel you're going the wrong way for quite some time, but you'll find you keep coming back, because once you've heard these teachings, you're not going to forget them. It's the only thing that's going to really get you out of the suffering, out of the helplessness, the meaninglessness of a life without the Dhamma. Good. So one person said sooner or later, and that's absolutely right. It's sometimes a matter of time, and we pick up the burden of time and make ourselves so miserable. Monastics can do that, because imagine we've left everything else. It's like, obviously we only do this because enlightenment becomes the goal, right? We've left everything else. There's no other hope for happiness in the world. We've given up that sort of hope. So sometimes monastics pick up the burden of time and feel, oh no, if I don't at least get to jhana, they think you could get something, like it's that getting mentality, or at least stream winning, then, I've wasted my monastic life. But if you just take away this artificial division between one life and the next, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter really how far we go. The point is that we're moving the right direction and that we're serving others along the way. I feel that's really important, because if it's still about our own liberation, we're going to get so miserable when we feel that it's far away. But if we can help people on the way, it doesn't matter. In fact, you might wish to slow things down. Even then, you're not going to be able to, though, because it's really not your choice. Okay, so someone's saying, I found the second teaching of the Buddha simply amazing. Are we going to another sutta now? Or is it the second teaching in this sutta? Yeah, I think you do mean the Anattalakkhana Sutta, but we'll do that another time. Is that what you mean, the Anattalakkhana? It just made me stop and my mouth flew open. I heard it about a month ago on YouTube, first by a Theravada non, I think that means, or a Tea non, it could be a Tibetan non, and then by a Western monk. Since then, I found the practice much easier to give myself to. That's fantastic. It probably was the Anattalakkhana Sutta. And I love the way you phrase that, easier to give yourself to the practice. That's right. We give our self view away, right? We give it. And I love that. That's how I try to meditate, that I'm not sitting here to get something. I'm sitting here to see what I can give to the practice, what I can give to the breath, what I can give to the silence, the attention I can give, the qualities of the heart that I can give, the beauty of my way of relating, the forgiveness I can give if I'm not relating wisely. Yeah, think about what you can give. It's a much more beautiful way to live. I benefit from repetition for the teachings to sink in, yes. Reading, speaking, listening, writing, great. It's also, the way you write those 4 things, reading, speaking, listening, writing, there's some discipline involved. It's a sort of discipline, isn't it? We are determined to keep on reviewing, repeating, bringing it to mind, recollecting, as the Buddha says, recollecting it, bringing it up in our mind. Because if we don't, then it's going to be our habitual thoughts that come to mind, our habitual conditioning that comes to mind. And we have to interrupt that pattern. So the more we can immerse ourselves in the Buddha's teachings, or, whether it's direct from the suttas, or whether you prefer to listen to Dhamma talks or discussions, hear things in your contemporary sort of language, or from other people who are similar to you or different to you, then whatever works is important. I know monastics, I'm sure there are lay people too, but certainly monastics have the whole day for this often, who, actually there's a lay person at Jhana Grove who's the caretaker, and he's an absolute inspirational practitioner. He was on my first 30-day course in 1999, so we go back a long way to India. He's an Australian, and his main practice is to memorize lots of the key suttas like Dhammacakka, Anattalakkhana, and others as well, really long ones like the Upanishad Sutta, and another one, I think the Avidya Sutta, the kind of causal suttas that talk about the causes for awakening. And he meditates for hours at a stretch. So sit for 3 hours. And as he's emerging, he has his own translation and that sutta with him. I think now he doesn't need to look at it because he's memorized it, and he just starts repeating it because his mind's very clear. So the first input he puts in when his mind's very clear is the suttas. And he does it every day. He starts also that way. Starts bringing up reflections at the beginning. So he's just constantly conditioning his mind. And he is really inspirational. The sort of person you never really notice. They get on very quietly with their life, but they're completely immersed in the Dhamma. Yeah. All right. Gosh, the time's flying. It's only 10 minutes to go. So we have covered number 3, but perhaps if you don't mind, I'll skip number 3. I'll just read it and then get on to number 4 and just see if we can get a little bit out of that one. So number 3 was that a person has good friends, good companions, and good comrades, which we all do to some degree. Since a person has good friends, good companions, good comrades, this too is a quality that serves as a protector. And number 4, again, a person is easy to correct and possesses qualities that make them easy to correct. They are patient and receive instruction respectfully. Since a person is easy to correct, patient, and receives instruction respectfully, this too is a quality that serves as a protector. What do you think? Are you easy to correct? Who do you take correction from? Is this important? I can see some people typing. Do you want to say anything? Not today? Okay, Janaki has raised her hand. Hi, Janaki.
Hello, everyone. I just want to know whether Kalyana Mitra is as the same as the protector. Is it the same?
Well, it's one of the protections, isn't it? So here they're saying that all these 10 qualities serve as a protector, but certainly spiritual friendship serves as a protector. And in a way, you could say it's one of the most important because, again, we can't even hear the Dhamma without spiritual friendship. We wouldn't even contact the Dhamma without the Buddha. And that's why he said it's the whole of the holy life, which means the whole of the spiritual path. And the reason that it's the whole of the path is because he says it's inevitable that we're going to practice the path if we have such good friends. So yes, certainly it's a protector. And the opposite is true, that we're in danger if we associate with unwise people, you know, and you can see that all the time. Young people who get radicalized maybe, and they get brought into, or they get groomed, you know, because they're associating with the wrong people and they end up doing terrible things that they regret for the rest of their life. And it's, you know, you can't say it's anyone's fault. It's just the conditions they've been exposed to. So we have to be really careful as to what kind of influence we let inside. And that can even be, you know, I think associating with the wrong people can include watching too much bad news, because you are associating with those people when you listen to what they say, and it affects your mind. If you hear people, you know, who spout really hateful rhetoric, divisive speech, they're in your room at that moment. They're in your mind, you know, and so they become an unwise companion for us to associate with. So we have to be very careful. We can know what's going on, but we don't have to expose ourselves over much. I'm going to move on. Sorry if there was more on that, but there's quite a few more comments, and I just want to make sure we finish everything before we end. So I just want to come to Sean now. Hi, Sean. Can you unmute? Have you a message?
Hello. Sorry, I'm
Hello.
not sure what happened there. Yeah, I just wanted to say that, first of all, it's so nice to have these Sutta classes again. It's lovely to do them. It is definitely quite different, I find, to other sort of teachings, which are great as well, but it feels much more sort of connected and talking about the spiritual friendship, and then also just hearing other people, things like, what Lee's saying, and then, reflecting on that. Definitely, I have found that I've changed a lot. I used to drink, used to go to the pub a lot and those kind of things. And I've kind of noticed how I have changed a lot. And therefore, with, what I decide I'm going to do as well. And, sometimes I think that there can be a phase of doubt or, suffering in a slightly different way. But more than anything, sometimes just because you're aware of it, I think. And so it's inspiring to read these suttas. I don't know why I've not been great at it recently on my own, but going through it all together, hearing other people's experiences really, really helps. And obviously that comes with spiritual friendship, and it kind of like listening to this sutta, how it's a protection, and it just that reminder that actually, whilst things are out of control, you have the potential within you to sort of control what you can, if that makes sense. I don't know if, rather than looking externally, which is what we are, or certainly from my point of view, I've always been guilty of. You're always looking externally for those things to make you happy, which never come. And then the more I re-engage with them, I just realized this isn't making me happy. Even earlier, I was listening to some music, and then I was like, no, I want to go to the next one. I want the next one. I was like, I'm just going to turn it off. Just settle. I've had a whole day at work. So, yeah, it was just to say that, really.
Thank you. Yeah, it's interesting because the more we, develop a love for the Dhamma and a certain happiness, get attuned to the happiness that comes from discussing the Dhamma, practicing meditation, the more the other things do feel like suffering in comparison. Things we used to enjoy, and it's not a sad thing. It's not a bad thing. It just means you found something that's much more nourishing, and that's a wonderful thing. So, yeah, I'm going to come to one more person before we end. So this is Kedwin. So nice to see you again.
Thank you, Venerable. All I wanted to say is this is such a rich discussion, and I'm so grateful that you're back and that we can meet together. So and online, I do everything online. This is how I met monastics, was online. I don't have access to anybody here, or I didn't used to. Now they're come closer. But so thank you so much for starting this back up again.
Oh, you're so welcome. And I suppose, if there are so many monastics we can listen to online, it's more than most people ever meet. I mean, in a way, you're richer than people who do have maybe one or two people they meet. I mean, I don't have any other monastics around me most of the time, but I certainly have a lot remotely, and that was absolutely wonderful. It's almost the same. It just takes a while, doesn't it, to tune into the fact that you're on a screen. But after a while, you realize you are a person, you are a real person. And if I were to meet any of you, we would feel that we know each other, because I've met many of you already. And you don't have to say anything. You don't have to explain yourself. You're energetically somehow connected. So it's really special. And hopefully, I think we missed each other, didn't we, when I was in the US? But yeah, maybe we meet another time. Yeah.
I'm coming to Europe next year, so I'm hoping to come.
Wonderful. Well, I hope you make it to Oxford.
I hope so too.
All right, I'll just read the last comments in the box, because I really don't like to leave anybody's comments or questions out, even if I can't respond. So one person's saying, I think I find this one challenging, and I think they mean the one about correction, which is very honest, because I think it is challenging. It's also in the Mangala Sutta. Yeah, is it? Is it? You have to point out the sentence to me another time. I can't think right now because I'm jet lagged. Being corrected, not having spiritual friends. I'm not sure how those two are connected, but certainly we need nice spiritual friends to correct us in a sensitive way and not to be corrected constantly. It's a subtle thing, isn't it? Yeah, the Buddha says those 5 ways. I hope all of you remember it. There's 5 ways or 5 considerations to make before you correct somebody. Is it true? Is it beneficial? Is it timely? Is it said with metta? And is it said gently? What's your motivation? If you're not coming from metta, if it's not gentle, even if it's true, it's probably going to hurt. Even if it's beneficial, it might not be the right time. So, yeah, but we do have to be open to correction if it's, if it can be helpful, even if it's wrong. I remember one woman wrote to me once and she was very angry because I'd called her a name, which in Derbyshire is an affectionate name. I said, hello, Chuck. And Chuck means like love. It means hello, darling. And I thought she was a friend, so it's like a really cute word. But anyway, in her culture, she was Australian. She thought that was like really offensive. I don't know if it means like a truckie or somebody, or I don't really know what it means, to be honest. But she just wrote back, you called me such and such. You really need to look at yourself. You really need to. And I wrote back and I said, oh, that's not how I meant it. I meant it as a term of affection, but I will look at myself and I will kind of see if there's something valid in this. Maybe there's something I'm not seeing. And I looked and I found there wasn't anything I wasn't seeing. It was just a misunderstanding with the language. And of course, because I answered like that, she wrote back full of apologies and the whole thing was dissolved, So I remember at the time seeing the defensiveness wanting to come up, but then I thought, hang on a minute, maybe there is something here I'm not seeing. So if we can take it that way, it's like Ajahn Brahm says, or Ajahn Chah said, someone calls you a dog, what do? Do you know? You look at your bum and you see if you got a tail. If you haven't got a tail, you're not a dog. So that's it. End of story. Yeah. So somebody said chicken, somebody said chook, but Shirley's correct, it's duck. Chook is like a chicken, but it's kind of the same thing as duck. I don't know. We just say that affectionately, duck, chook. In the north, anyway. One last comment. As I have learned in Dhamma or Buddhism, the monastics, bhikkhus and bhikkhunis are called kalyanamitas. Yeah, I think spiritual friends are called kalyanamitas, whether you're a monk or a nun or a layperson or whoever you are, you're a kalyanamitta if you're a spiritual friend. And, not all bhikkhunis and bhikkhus. Bhikkhunis are pretty good because we're new. We don't have enough to have too many scallywags. But, there are some corrupt monastics who actually have committed disrobal offences and they're walking around in the robes. They're not actually monastics if they've committed disrobal offences, but you can't just presume that because people are wearing the robes, their sila is pure. So please be discerning about your spiritual friendships and see if you can learn something from everybody. That's what I would like to perhaps share. Just see if you can learn, because even when when we're sort of around people who we see are doing lots of mistakes and acting in unskillful ways that harm others, we can still learn how not to be. We can still say, oh, look, they spoke in this harsh way. I've probably spoken that way myself before, and I can see from the way they spoke to this person that it wasn't beneficial. Maybe I can try harder to speak more gently. Instead of, oh, they should be like this, they should be like that. Well, maybe I should be like this, I should be like that, I should try harder to be kind. So yes, thanks for the clarification. Chook means chicken in Australian. Yeah, I think it does. But the point being that in English, it's just a term of affection, at least in the northern dialect. So whatever, we can misunderstand each other, and that's important too, that we choose our words carefully and explain ourselves if somebody's misunderstood. So if you have a few more minutes, I think someone here, and I'm not sure if you've discussed it. Oh, I think Gunther is ready to say a few words to close. So yeah. Thank you very much. Yeah, and then I'll tell you about our next events. Lots of events.
Thank you very much, Venerable Chanda. I think we all are very grateful for her time and friendship for us on this regular basis. You can support the Anukampa project, which now has a very nice place. We are in Oxford, inside. By dana, different ways. You could give a one-off donation. There is a link at the anukampaproject.org donate webpage, or it would also be very helpful regular direct debits. Also, very much appreciated would be shopping deliveries or food organizations which can be made remotely. And for this, you should contact possibly a team at anukampaproject.org, or supermarket or shopping vouchers, which could be of any amount, which would be quite easy to turn to someone to get needed things and for the vihara and everything. Thank you. You're muted.
I'm muted, yes. Thank you very much, Gunther. It was good that I was muted because I sneezed. Not that I'm sure you'll forgive me for sneezing. Anyway, my body's still adjusting to the temperature, and sometimes I'm hot and sometimes I'm cold, and I don't really know which country I'm in or what season it is. But I'm so delighted I came. I knew that I would enjoy it. That's why I decided. I know I'll only have arrived in England 2 days, but I want to do the Sutta class because it gives me a lot of happiness and joy. So thank you all for being here. And yes, we usually end with the adverts. So adverts coming up for more Dhamma brainwashing. So the first advert is that tomorrow morning we have a metta meditation at 9 o'clock UK time, that's GMT. We just meditate together for about an hour or a bit less. There's a bit of introduction and then we sit. And then I'm not sure next week. Are we down for the same again? Sutta class next Friday? Great. So another Sutta class. I'll be not in Oxford at that time. And yes, keep an eye out for the dates because it might not be every single week. Sometimes I'm teaching a retreat somewhere and I can't be here. So just keep an eye out for all the dates of the metta and the Friday nights and everything on our website. And then, of course, in the end of Jan, Bhante Sujato is coming to the UK. We do have one extra event that I haven't put up on the website yet, which is a Friday night talk at Oxford Buddha Vihara on Friday, the 31st of January. And then also on the 1st of February, there's a day retreat in Oxford with Bhante Sujato. The day here in the monastery is full. It's more than full, it's over full, actually. And then there's another public talk on the Tuesday, the 5th of Feb. There's also a couple of things before then as well, organised by one of his other supporters. There's a day retreat on the 26th of Jan in Brighton, right? And then there's also a Dhamma talk in London on the 22nd of Jan at the London Buddhist Society. Anyway, I think it's on our website. And no, there's no New Year retreat this year, which, yeah, I thought, should I do a day retreat at least? Because the Sheffield Insight venue is not there anymore. Like they can't hire it out anymore because the Quakers have gone bust, kind of. They have to hire it to businesses, which is really a shame. But I also thought it's good for me to actually not work throughout the new year this year. So, and have a bit more energy for the upcoming year. So, but we'll do some nice things, don't worry. And whatever we do with Bhante Sujato will be recorded by the wonderful Matthias. So all that will be shared as well. We might even be able to do some live streaming. We'll discuss it together and see how we go. All right, so shall we unmute you and we can wave goodbye?